The West Loop buzzed with ambition that night, our new office gleaming under the Chicago skyline. I wasn't expecting much from the opening party, just another night of shaking hands and pitching dreams to investors. My navy dress hugged my curves, not for anyone's eyes but my own. I felt sharp, alive, like I could own the room. I was mid-sentence, explaining our ad campaign's edge to a silver-haired investor when the air shifted. Heads turned. Daniel Donovan walked in. He wasn't supposed to be here. As co-founder of Donovan Enterprises, Daniel rarely showed up to these things. Ethan, my husband, had mentioned his dad was too busy lately, whatever that meant. I'd met Daniel a handful of times. Family dinners, mostly, where he'd been polite but distant, his gray eyes scanning the room like he was sizing up everyone's worth. Tonight, though, he looked different. His charcoal suit fit like it was tailored to his soul, and there was a spark in his gaze, like he was hunting for something. I kept talking to the investor, but my focus slipped. Daniel moved through the crowd, shaking hands, his low laugh cutting through the chatter. By the time I wrapped up my pitch, he was at the bar, alone, swirling a whiskey. I don't know why I walked over. Maybe it was the adrenaline of the night, or maybe I just wanted to prove I could hold my own with him. "Nice to see you out of the boardroom, Daniel," I said, leaning against the counter, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned, and those eyes locked onto mine, sharp and unreadable. "Clara, didn't expect to see you working the room like you own it." His voice was gravelly, warm, like he was sharing a secret. I laughed, brushing it off. Someone's got to sell the vision. We talked, small stuff at first. The office, the campaign, the city's pulse. But then his questions turned. "You ever feel like you're playing a role here?" he asked, his tone low, like he was peeling back a layer. "Like you're more than what they see." I froze, my martini glass cold against my fingers. No one asked me things like that. Not Ethan, not my team. I was Clara, the marketing lead, the wife, the one who always had it together. "Maybe," I said, my voice softer than I meant. "But who has time to figure that out?" He leaned closer, just enough for me to catch the cedar in his cologne. "You'd be surprised what you can find time for." His words hung there, heavy like a dare. The bartender slid another drink my way, and somehow we were alone now, the crowd fading into a hum. He reached for his glass, and there was tension between us. I felt that everything had changed. I should have, but I didn't. "You're stronger than you let on, Clara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Most people don't see it, but I do." My breath caught. I wanted to laugh it off, to break the tension, but I couldn't. His gaze held me, like he saw straight through the polished version of me I'd spent years building. The room spun a little, and not from the martini. The night blurred on, speeches, clinking glasses, fake smiles. I played my part, but Daniel's words stuck, looping in my head. When I finally got home, Ethan was already asleep, his laptop open on the couch. I poured a glass of water, my phone buzzing in my purse. A text. Unknown number. "Saw something real in you tonight. Been a while since I felt that. D." My heart stopped. I knew it was him. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I should have deleted it, blocked him, told Ethan, but I didn't. Instead, I saved the number and turned off my phone, my pulse racing like I just stepped off a cliff. The week after the party, I was drowning. Our big presentation for a new client was falling apart. My team was scrambling, data was missing, and I was one email away from losing it. I hadn't slept properly since Daniel's text. I kept rereading it, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I hadn't answered. Not yet. Work was my excuse to ignore the pit in my stomach, but even that was crumbling. I was in the office late, coffee cold on my desk, when my phone buzzed. "Heard you're in a bind. I'm nearby. Can I help?" My pulse spiked. How did he even know? I hadn't told anyone outside my team. I should have said no, but I was desperate. "Sure," I typed back, my hand shaky. "We're in the conference room." 20 minutes later, Daniel strode in, carrying an air of control that made the room feel smaller. He wasn't alone. He brought 2 guys in sharp suits, one a data analyst, the other a PR whiz. "Clara, meet Tom and Javier," he said, his voice smooth. "They owe me a favor. Let's fix this." I blinked, stunned. My team perked up, suddenly energized, and we dove in. Daniel didn't just watch. He rolled up his sleeves, asking sharp questions, pointing out gaps in our slides. By midnight, we had a polished deck that could have sold ice to a blizzard. Everyone was thanking him, shaking his hand like he was some corporate savior. But I knew better. His eyes kept finding mine, lingering a second too long. This wasn't about the company. This was about me. After the others left, he offered to drive me home. "It's late," he said, his tone casual but firm. "No sense in you taking the L." I hesitated, my coat half on. Ethan was out of town, and the idea of an empty apartment didn't exactly thrill me. "Okay," I said, ignoring the warning bells in my head. In his car, a sleek black Audi that smelled faintly of leather and pine, the city lights blurred past. I expected him to grill me about work, but instead, he turned on a low jazz playlist, the kind that makes you feel like you're in a movie. "You didn't have to do that back there," I said, staring out the window. "The rescue mission." He glanced over, one hand on the wheel. "You think I did it for the applause? Clara, you were sinking. I couldn't just watch." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Why do you care?" He didn't answer right away. The music filled the silence, a saxophone weaving through the tension. "You're not happy," he said finally, his voice low, like he was stating a fact. "Not with Ethan. Not with this life. He doesn't see you, not the way you deserve." My breath hitched. I wanted to argue, to defend my marriage, but the words wouldn't come. Ethan was steady, kind, but lately it felt like we were roommates, not partners. Daniel's words cut too close to the truth. We pulled up to my building, the engine idling. I should have gotten out, thanked him, and closed the door. But I didn't. I turned to him, and before I could say anything, he leaned in. He came closer, and I didn't stop him. It was a mistake, and I knew it that second. I kissed him back. When we broke apart, my heart was pounding. He didn't apologize or backtrack. He just looked at me, his eyes dark. "You know where to find me," he said. I got out, my legs shaky, and didn't look back. Upstairs, I sat on the couch, staring at my wedding ring. Guilt clawed at me, but beneath it, something else stirred. Excitement, raw and dangerous. My phone stayed silent, but I knew it wouldn't for long. I was already waiting for his next move, and that scared me more than anything. I woke up the next morning with a headache and a secret that felt like a bruise. The kiss in Daniel's car burned in my mind, vivid and wrong. I told myself it was a mistake, a one-time lapse. I'd bury it, focus on Ethan, on work, on the life I'd built. But even as I made coffee, my phone felt like a grenade in my pocket. I didn't delete Daniel's number. I didn't block him. That was my first lie to myself. At home, I played the part of the perfect wife. Ethan was back from his trip, distracted but sweet, talking about a new project over breakfast. I nodded, smiled, laughed at his jokes, but my skin felt too tight. Every time he looked at me, I wondered if he could see it, the guilt, the thrill, the chaos I was hiding. I needed to fix this, to prove I was still me. So I planned a weekend getaway to Wisconsin, a cozy cabin by a lake, just us. "We need this," I told him, my voice bright. He agreed, his eyes softening, and for a moment, I believed I could outrun what I'd done. The cabin was perfect, woodsy, quiet, with a fireplace that crackled as we sipped wine. We talked about old times, laughed about our first date, and for a few hours it felt real. But then, Saturday night, we were curled up on the couch, his head on my shoulder. I was half asleep, lulled by the warmth, when I murmured, "You're so good to me, Dan." The room went still. Ethan's body tensed. He sat up, his face unreadable. "What did you just say?" My heart dropped. I meant Ethan," I stammered, my face hot. "I'm just tired, babe." He stared at me, his jaw tight, then nodded once, like he was swallowing something bitter. "Yeah, tired." He didn't push, but the air between us turned cold. We went to bed without touching. Back in Chicago, work became my escape. I threw myself into meetings, emails, anything to avoid the fracture I'd caused. But Daniel was everywhere. A closed-door meeting for top execs was next, a fancy dinner at a rooftop restaurant, all glass and city lights. I wore a black dress, professional but sharp, telling myself it was for me, not him. He was there, of course, commanding the table, his voice cutting through the chatter. I kept my distance, focusing on the CEO's questions, but I felt his eyes on me, like a heat I couldn't shake. After dessert, I slipped to the restroom to catch my breath. The marble counter was cool under my hands as I stared at my reflection, willing myself to stay in control. The door opened. Daniel. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, his reflection looming behind mine. Then he stepped closer, his fingers grazing my wrist. "You're avoiding me," he said, his voice low, almost amused. "I'm not," I lied, my pulse hammering. His touch lingered, deliberate, and I didn't pull away. "You made a choice that night," he said, his breath warm against my ear. "Don't back out now." His words were a challenge, a pull I couldn't resist. He let go, stepping back, but the space between us felt charged, alive. That night, I didn't go home. I told Ethan I was crashing at my friend Lisa's, a lie that came too easily. Lisa had moved to LA months ago, but he didn't know that. Daniel had a room booked at a boutique hotel downtown, under a name that wasn't his. The room was all sleek lines and dim lights, the kind of place that felt like a secret. We didn't talk much. Once again, I gave in to a feeling I shouldn't have. It wasn't passion. It was an escape from the truth. It was reckless, intoxicating, and I knew I'd pay for it. But in that moment, I didn't care. Miami's heat clung to my skin as I stepped into the hotel ballroom, the corporate conference in full swing. The air was thick with ambition, execs in tailored suits, clinking glasses, and fake laughs echoing off the chandeliers. I'd been dreading this trip, but work demanded it, and I needed the distraction. Things with Daniel had spiraled too far, too fast. Every stolen moment with him felt like a hit of something I couldn't quit, but the weight of my lies to Ethan was crushing me. I thought I could handle it, keep the plate spinning. I was wrong. The first day was a blur of panels and networking. Daniel was everywhere, commanding attention as usual, his voice cutting through the noise. I stuck to my role, pitching ideas, shaking hands, but my eyes kept finding him. He hadn't texted since the hotel, but his glances across the room were enough. Sharp, knowing, like we shared a secret the rest of the world was too dumb to see. It thrilled me and terrified me. That night, at the gala dinner, I saw her. A confident young woman flirted with Daniel at the counter. Her laugh was loud, her hand lingering on his arm. He was eating it up, his smile easy, the same one he'd used on me. My stomach twisted. I gripped my wine glass, forcing myself to look away, but the image burned. Was this who he was? A player, collecting women like trophies? I'd been so sure I was different, that what we had was real. Now I felt like a fool. I excused myself from my table, my heels clicking as I headed for the balcony. The ocean air was salty, heavy, but it didn't clear my head. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but what right did I have? I was the one cheating on my husband. I was the one lying. I felt something clenching inside me, jealousy, resentment, and the realization that everything was getting out of control. Later, I saw them again, her head tilted close to his hand brushing her wrist. I downed another glass of wine, my face hot. When the night wound down, I went to my room, my phone silent. I half expected him to text, to explain, but nothing came. Then, at 2 a.m., a knock. I knew it was him before I opened the door. Daniel stood there, tie loosened, eyes dark. "You didn't answer my text," he said, stepping inside without asking. "I didn't get one," I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. He smirked, like he knew I was lying. "You're upset. Saw you watching me tonight." I crossed my arms, my pulse racing. "Who is she, Daniel?" "Another one of your projects." His laugh was low, cruel. "You think you own me now? Clara, you're married. You don't get to play jealous." His words hit like a slap. I wanted to scream, to throw him out, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there, silent, as he closed the distance between us. "You're not like her," he said, his voice softer now, his hand grazing my cheek. "You're more. You know that." I should have pushed him away. Once again, I made a choice I would later regret. Not because it was the right thing to do, but because I didn't know how to say no. We didn't talk about her, or Ethan, or the mess we were making. It was easier to drown in the moment than face the truth. The next morning, I was alone in my room when Ethan called. His voice was slurred, unsteady. He'd been drinking. "Clara, did you know about my dad?" he asked, his words heavy. "He got canned from his last company, messing with employees' wives. You believe that?" My blood ran cold. I gripped the phone, my voice barely steady. "No, I didn't know." He laughed, bitter. "Yeah, figures. Just watch yourself, okay?" He hung up, and I sat there, staring at the wall. Ethan's words confirmed what I'd feared. Daniel wasn't a one-off mistake. He was a pattern, and I was just another name on his list. But the worst part, even knowing that, I couldn't let go. His pull was stronger than my shame, and that realization made me hate myself a little more. Back in Chicago, the city felt colder, sharper, like it was slicing through my carefully built walls. Miami had left me raw, Daniel's betrayal with the secretary, and Ethan's drunken call looping in my head. I tried to act normal, to slip back into my routine, work, gym, dinner with Ethan, but every move felt like a performance. My marriage was a tightrope, and I was one misstep from falling. Ethan was different now, quieter. He'd always been the steady one, the guy who'd bring me coffee when I was stressed or laugh off my bad days. But since Wisconsin, his warmth had dimmed. He didn't ask about the Dan slip, but I caught him watching me sometimes, his eyes searching for something I couldn't give. I doubled down, cooking his favorite meals, suggesting movie nights, anything to fill the silence. It wasn't enough. I could feel him slipping away, and the guilt was a weight I carried everywhere. Work was no better. Daniel was back in the office, all business, but his presence was a magnet. I avoided him, sticking to my desk, but every meeting felt like a test. His voice, his glances, they pulled at me, even as I hated him for it. I started keeping a diary in my phone's notes app, a place to dump the chaos in my head. Late at night, when Ethan was asleep, I'd type out everything. The kiss in the car, the hotel, the way Daniel made me feel alive and ruined all at once. It was reckless, but it was the only way I could breathe. One night, I fell asleep with my phone unlocked, the notes app open. I woke to Ethan standing over me, his face pale, my phone in his hand. My stomach dropped. "What is this, Clara?" he asked, his voice low, like he was afraid of the answer. He held up the screen, my words glaring back at me. "I kissed someone I shouldn't have. Someone I can't stop thinking about." I sat up, my mouth dry. "It's nothing." I lied, my voice shaking. "Just thoughts. Fiction, almost." He didn't buy it. His eyes were hard, hurt. "Fiction? About a guy you shouldn't love? I hope to God this isn't what I think it is." He tossed the phone onto the bed, his jaw tight. "I can't do this right now." He grabbed his keys and left. No yelling, no fight, just silence that cut deeper than any argument. I sat there, staring at the empty doorway, my heart pounding. He knew. Maybe not the details. Maybe not Daniel's name, but he knew enough. I should have run after him, confessed, begged. But I didn't. I was frozen, caught between fear and a twisted relief that the truth was finally out. The next day, I couldn't face work. I called in sick, then drove to Daniel's place, a sleek house by Lake Michigan, all glass and solitude. I don't know what I expected. Comfort, answers, a way to fix this. He answered the door in a sweater, casual, like we were old friends. But his eyes were cold, guarded. "Clara," he said, stepping aside. "Bad timing." I spilled everything, Ethan, the diary, the fight. He listened, leaning against the counter, his face unreadable. When I finished, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're free now," he said, his voice flat. "Ethan's gone. You don't have to pretend anymore." I blinked, stunned. Free. I didn't want this. I thought. "You thought what?" He cut in, sharper now. "That I'd be your savior? Clara, I'm not your husband. I don't owe you a future." His words hit like a punch. I'd risked everything. My marriage, my career, my self-respect for him. And now he was stepping back, like I was a game he'd grown bored of. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just stood there, my hands shaking. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He shrugged, his eyes distant. "You made your choices. So did I." I left, the door clicking shut behind me. The drive home was a blur, tears burning my eyes. Ethan wasn't there when I got back. His jacket was gone, his laptop missing. I was alone, and for the first time, I realized how deep I'd fallen and how little I had left to hold on to. Ethan came back, but not for me. I was in the kitchen, staring at a half-empty coffee mug when the door opened. He didn't look at me, just dropped his keys on the counter with a clink that felt louder than it should have. "We need to talk," he said, his voice flat, like he'd rehearsed it. My stomach churned. I'd been waiting for this, dreading it, but the reality hit harder than I'd imagined. He didn't sit down. He stood by the window, arms crossed, the Chicago skyline gray behind him. "I'm not here to fix things," he said. "I just want to sort out the house. The lawyer's coming tomorrow." His words were a blade, precise and cold. No yelling, no tears, just a man done with me. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I'd broken us, and now we were dividing the wreckage. The next day, the lawyer laid out papers like we were dissolving a business, not a marriage. Ethan wanted the house. I didn't fight him. I didn't have the energy. His mother, who used to send me recipes and call me sweetie, stopped texting. His sister unfollowed me on Instagram, her silence louder than any insult. The life I'd built with him was unraveling, thread by thread, and I was too numb to stop it. Daniel was a ghost. I texted him after the fight with Ethan, desperate for something, reassurance, distraction, anything. He didn't reply. At work, he was all business, his eyes sliding past me in meetings like I was furniture. I heard whispers, though. The secretary from Miami was around more, her laugh echoing in the hallways. "It's nothing serious," a coworker said, shrugging. "You know Daniel." But I didn't. Not really. I thought I was special, but I was just another fling, a temporary thrill for a man who collected them. I started avoiding the office when I could, working from home, burying myself in spreadsheets. But the loneliness was a weight I couldn't shake. My apartment felt too big, too quiet. I'd sit on the couch, scrolling through old photos of Ethan and me, trips to the lake, his arm around me, both of us smiling. I didn't recognize that version of myself anymore. She was gone, replaced by someone who chased a fantasy and lost everything. One morning, I saw them, Daniel and the secretary, at a coffee shop near the office. She was leaning across the table, her hand brushing his, and he was smiling, the same smile he'd given me at the bar that first night. My chest tightened, but I didn't cry. I just stood there, hidden by the crowd, watching the man who'd unraveled my life move on without a backward glance. I went home and deleted his number. Not because I was strong, but because I was tired. Tired of hoping, tired of waiting for him to care. I thought about calling my mom, telling her everything, but I couldn't. She'd worry, and I didn't have the words to explain how I'd ended up here, alone adrift, with nothing but regrets to keep me company. Work was my only anchor, but even that felt hollow. I'd see Daniel in meetings, his voice steady, his suits pristine, like nothing had happened. Once our eyes met, and I thought I saw a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or pity. But he looked away, and I was invisible again. I'd gambled everything on him, on the rush he gave me, and now I was paying the price. The worst part wasn't losing Ethan or Daniel. It was losing myself, and not knowing how to get her back. I couldn't keep living like a shadow. The silence in my apartment, the empty inbox, the way Daniel's indifference cut deeper than Ethan's absence, it was too much. I'd lost everything, but I wasn't ready to disappear. I decided to fight, not for them, but for some piece of myself I could still salvage. It was a desperate, messy plan, and I knew it might burn me, but sitting still wasn't an option anymore. I started with Ethan. I spent a night drafting a letter, my hands shaking as I typed. No lies, no excuses, just the truth. I told him about Daniel, the affair, the way I'd let myself get lost in something I couldn't control. I apologized, not just for the betrayal, but for failing us both. "I don't expect forgiveness," I wrote, "but I want you to know I'm trying to be better." I hit send, my heart in my throat, and waited. Days passed. No reply. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping for anything. A curse, a question, even anger. Nothing came. Ethan was gone, and my confession was just another weight I'd carry alone. Work was a minefield. Daniel was still there, untouchable, his charm intact while I felt like a ghost in my own life. I pushed through, keeping my head down, but the tension was suffocating. Then I saw them together, Ethan and Daniel, at a restaurant downtown. I was grabbing lunch with a coworker when I spotted them through the window, sitting across from each other, talking like nothing was wrong. My blood ran cold. Ethan's face was calm, Daniel's hands animated, like they were discussing business, not the wreckage of my marriage. I stood frozen, my coworker's voice fading into static. How could they sit there, so casual, while I was falling apart? I don't know what possessed me. I walked in, my pulse pounding, and approached their table. Ethan saw me first, his jaw tightening. Daniel's eyes flicked up, surprised but not rattled. "Clara," Ethan said, his voice low, controlled. "What are you doing here?" I ignored the question, my gaze locked on Daniel. "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough for nearby tables to turn. "You ruin everything, and you just sit here like it's nothing." My words spilled out, raw and reckless. "Ethan, look at him. He's not your hero. He's a manipulator, and I was stupid enough to fall for it." Daniel leaned back, his face unreadable. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he didn't defend his father. "Clara, stop," he said, his voice sharp. "You don't get to play victim here." The room felt too small, the stares too heavy. I wanted to scream, to make them feel the chaos they'd left me in, but I was unraveling. "I'm not the victim," I snapped. "But I'm done letting you both pretend this didn't happen." I turned and walked out, my hands trembling, the city noise swallowing me. The fallout was swift. By Monday, HR called me in. Someone at the restaurant was a colleague, and my outburst had spread like wildfire. Unprofessional conduct, they called it. I didn't fight the demotion. I took the smaller office, the reduced role, and the pitying glances from coworkers. I'd wanted to reclaim something, but all I'd done was dig my hole deeper. I saw Ethan one last time, at the lawyer's office, finalizing the divorce. He didn't mention the restaurant, but his eyes said enough, disappointment, not anger. I wanted to ask if he'd read my letter, if it mattered at all, but I didn't. Some doors stay closed. Daniel, of course, was nowhere. He'd slipped away, untarnished, while I paid the price. I'd fought for redemption, but all I'd found was the truth. I was on my own, and the only way out was through.